Have you ever actually tried to follow Pokemon's slogan and catch 'em all? Well, I'm gonna be doing that, and I'm gonna be taking it a step further and catch every Pokemon, including gender differences and other form changes, while obtaining them in the oldest games you can catch them in, while also using Pokeballs only. This episode is Generation 4, and we will be catching every Pokemon from Turtwig to Arceus. Before we continue, I would highly recommend you watch this series from the beginning if you haven't done so yet, as I have already caught the first 3 generations of Pokemon while going over all the info on what this challenge entails. One thing I want to mention before we begin is that a lot of you have been wondering how I keep track of every Pokemon you need to catch. Me personally, I just take screenshots of the Pokemon Go Pokédex and just from memory, remember every Pokemon that has some sort of form change. But I know a lot of you want to follow along and complete your own living dexes without having to remember every form of every Pokemon. So I made a full Google Sheets page that you can use to keep track of every Pokemon. Each generation is separated on its own page, and the rows for each Pokemon tell you everything, including the dex number, the name of the Pokemon, the home sprites, what form the Pokemon is, the oldest games you can catch them in, and what their living dex number is, so you can keep track of how many Pokemon you'll need to catch for each generation. Some cells are highlighted in a cyan color, and if you click the cell, it'll give you more info on the Pokemon if it's a Pokemon that has some additional info you should know in order to obtain it. These Pokemon are mainly mythicals, as those can be quite complex to obtain. The first page of the document also gives more info on what everything means, including some optional Pokemon from later generations. If there's confusion on the pages or you notice an error, make sure to let me know in the comments of these Living Dex videos or by contacting me on Twitter. I'll have that linked in the description of this video. But for later generations of Pokemon, if you're uncertain about some of the optional Pokemon or if some of the Pokemon forms even count towards a Living Dex, just know that I will mention those Pokemon when I get to them in this series. In order to get this page to keep track of your living dex, I have a download link in the description of this video. This is an Excel file, so it's recommended you download it from a computer and then re-upload the file to your own Google Drive or Excel program to edit it for yourself. Also, I should probably address the elephant in the room, but recently, Nintendo announced that they will be shutting down online services for the 3DS and Wii U in April of 2024. While it has been confirmed that Pokemon Bank and Pokétransporter will remain active after this time, the Pokemon Company strongly encouraged users to send up their Pokemon into home sooner rather than later. So no, Bank is not shutting down this upcoming April, but it will be shutting down at some point. We just don't know when. Hopefully, they can figure something out in order to allow us to keep sending Pokemon up from older games into newer games, but who knows, this could just be the end of the first 7 generations of Pokemon. As always, if you made it this far into the video, please consider leaving a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Both are completely free and help me out a ton, allowing me to make more videos like this one. Alright, let's get into the Generation 4 Living Dex. If you've been following the series, you'll know that in the Generation 1 Living Dex, I caught all the extra Pokemon I needed for future generations. Because Generation 4 has a bunch of new evolutions, I have already included these, so I went through to see what Pokemon I needed, and it turns out we already had 12 Pokemon for this Living Dex. Also, I had a Mime Jr. in here that I believe I caught for Mr. Rhyme later on, which I just deleted it. I'm gonna catch a new one. We're gonna return to that once we get to Galar, so we do not have any Mime Juniors for this Living Dex moving forward. But first things first, we have to buy a bunch of Pokeballs and just start catching some Pokemon. So we start off with a Bidoof. We need to catch 2 Bidoofs, 1 for each gender difference. Then we get a couple Starlies. We need these for the gender difference as well. And actually, most of the early route Pokemon have gender differences for the entire evolution lines. This is probably because gender differences were first introduced in Generation 4, so they kind of went all out with this one. Next, we went to the route above Sandgem Town, which I should explain now. I don't know the route names by heart, so I'm usually just going to use directions to explain what route I'm on, unless I know the route name. But again, with Shinx, we need 2 of these for the gender difference. I then went to Sendoff Spring, which is where you find Giratina, because I knew we could get some more evolved Pokemon or more higher level Pokemon. So we start off finding a B-Barrel. Again, we need 2 of of these for the gender difference. Then I randomly found a Chingling, which I didn't even know appeared in this area, but we do need it, so we caught that. Then I caught 2 Staravias, which I decided to catch Staravia here because when we get Staraptor, it'll just be 1 level up to evolve them, as they are already high enough level. Staravia was a bit rare in that area, so I decided for the 2 that I'd keep as Staravia, I would just catch them in the Trophy Garden because they're a lot more common. Then I went to find 4 Luxios for the rest of that line and ended up finding a Chatot. This is the route to the left of Sunnyshore. After catching the Chatot, I did find the Luxios that I needed. While we were looking for Luxio though, we found a couple Floatzel, which this one does have a gender difference as well. The whole Buizel line does. You can't really see it because it's on the back of it, but rest assured there is a gender difference for both Buizel and Floatzel, so we had to catch 2 Floatzels. After that, I wanted to get the honey trees out of the way. For those who don't know, there's a bunch of honey tree exclusive Pokemon, and in order to get those to appear, you have to slather honey on these special trees and wait 6 real-time hours before you have a chance of encountering a Pokemon on them. So I figured I would locate all the trees and put honey on them to catch the Pokemon at a later time. While locating the honey trees, I ended up finding a West Sea Shellos. Obviously, we need 2 Shellos, 1 for each sea, and we decided to finish off the Buizel line by catching 2 Buizels of the different genders. For the next honey tree, I went to the Fuego Ironworks, and while we were there, I encountered a West Sea Gastrodon, and when we made our way back to the Valley Windworks, we found a Pachirisu. We need 2 of these because Pachirisu also has a gender difference. This is one I actually didn't realize until later on. In fact, I got a shiny Pachirisu in Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, which I guess I'll leave a card for that on screen now if you want to check that out. But that's when I discovered that it had a gender difference. It's just the little blue stripe on the top of its head is longer as a male one. Then I went to the route to the right of Pastoria City and got myself an East Sea Shellos. Also, like every video, I should mention, we jump all over the place just going for whatever we can. So we will backtrack, we will go forward, we'll jump here and there, and just catch random Pokemon as we go. Then I went to that one area in Victory Road that is blocked off until you beat the Elite Four in order to get a couple Gabites. I actually needed 4 of these things because the whole Gibble line has gender differences, and the gender difference is the dorsal fin on all of them have a notch taken out of them when they are male. So we ended up catching our 4 Gabites. We will have to catch Gibble later on, but then we went to the route where you get Shaman in order to find an EC Gastrodon to complete that evolution line. Then I decided to go to Eterna Forest and find myself a couple Beniris. As soon as I caught one of the Beniris, I put it in my party in order to get friendship with it, because if you know Beniri, it's a friendship evolution, but for some reason they set it as low as possible. Normally Pokemon have a set base friendship when you catch them, being like 100 or something, but for some reason Beniri is set to 0 and it is just a lot harder. So we just put it in our party as soon as possible, trying to get the friendship up while we're collecting other Pokemon in the region. I then went to Orberg to revive a couple Skull Fossils. I did have these because this was my main Platinum file, so I just decided to revive them. The way the fossils work in Platinum version, as normally in Diamond and Pearl, they're version exclusive. You get Armor Fossil in Pearl and you get Skull Fossil in Diamond. But for Platinum, it's based on the last digit of your ID number. If it is an odd number, you get Skull Fossil. If it's an even number, you get Armor Fossil. And unfortunately, all of my Platinum copies I have, all of their IDs were odd numbers, so I'll have to get the Armor Fossil later on. I then made my way to Wayward Cave in order to finish off the Gibble line, and in our first encounter we found a Bronzor, which we did need, and then I got my 2 Gibbles with the gender differences. After that, I went to the route south of Veilstone and went through the Maniac Tunnel in order to find Hippopotas. Luckily for me, because again, this is my main Platinum save file, I have already caught all of the unknown letters in the Salacion Ruins, so Hippopotas has a much higher encounter rate than it normally does. Obviously here we need to catch 2 Hippopotas for the gender differences, but for Hippowdon, I decided to go to the Sandstorm route in the post-game area because I know Hippowdon actually appears there, and it's a lot easier than evolving a Hippopotas or 2. Also, I should mention that most of these Pokemon I caught live on my Twitch, so if you want to see me catching full living dexes live, then follow me on Twitch. The link is in the description of all my videos. But for now, off stream, since enough time has passed, I decided to check all the honey trees, and for our our first honey tree, we got a female Burmy. If you know Burmy, then you'll know that it has 3 different cloaks we need to collect, along with the females evolving into Wormadam, which also have the 3 cloaks we need to collect, and the male ones evolving into Mothim. So we need 7 total Burmies here. The first tree gave us a female Burmy, which is great. After that, I went to the next tree at the Valley Windworks, but conveniently it was Friday, so I found Drifloon there. Then the next honey tree gave us a Cherubi, which we need 2 of these for the line. Cherim is one of those Pokemon that does have different forms, but unfortunately you can't physically have both forms in your Pokemon home, so we just need 2 of them. We don't need one for the Overcast form and one for the Sunshine form. The next honey tree gave us our second Cherubi, so we were already done with that line. The tree after that gave us another female Burmy, which is great because obviously we need a lot more females than male ones. After that, we got a female Combee on the first try, which if you know Combee, you know that its gender ratio is 1 in 8 for the female, making not only the female Combee, but the Vespiquen a lot more rare, so it was nice getting the female one on the first try. Since I collect the gender differences, I did need 2 female Combees, so the next tree gave me a male one, but luckily you can just save in front of the trees, reset, and keep getting Combees until they decide to be the right gender. But after a few resets, we ended up getting a second female Combee, so now we just need 1 male one for the full set. The tree after that, we got another female Burmy, and it's kind of funny at this point that we've only gotten females so far. The next tree after that, we got another female Burmy. Okay, I'm kind of concerned why I'm not getting male ones at this point. The next tree gave us our male Combee, so we got that to finish off that line, and the tree after gave us yet another female Burmy. I then had to re-slather the trees with honey in order to get another chance at the rest of the Burmy line, and we had to wait until nighttime to check the last few, and the next one gave us another female Burmy. Alright, well, we've gotten 6 female Burmies in a row. There's no way the next one's gonna be a female, right? It's a female. At least this time we can just reset until we get a male, and since it's just a 50-50 chance, it's very easy to get this. It's not a big deal. It's just very strange that I got 7 females in a row. With that male Burmy, we have completed all of the honey tree Pokemon outside of Munchlax, which, if you want to know how Munchlax works, you essentially get 4 honey trees that can give you Munchlax, and those are based on a hidden value that you get when you start your new save file. And essentially, I actually know where my Munchlax tree is, but unfortunately, even knowing where your Munchlax tree is, you have a 1 in 100 chance that it'll even give you a Munchlax, which originally when I did this back so many years ago, I ended up getting Munchlax first try off of the first tree I put honey on, which was insane. But I didn't want to have to wait 6 hours, essentially 100 times to get this Munchlax, so we'll get that another way later. After that, we went to the route to the left of Pastoria to get a few Crogunks. We need 4 of these, as both Krogunk and Toxicroak have gender differences. Krogunk's gender difference is a bit subtle. It is those like white bandage looking things on its chest go up a little higher on the female one. Then we went south of Sandgem Town and fished for a Finneon. We actually need 2 Finneons for a gender difference. We used the Good Rod to get Finneon. After catching the Finneons, we used the Super Rod to get 2 Lumineons, as Lumineon also has the same gender difference. Both their like back fins have a slightly longer part to them when they're female. Then we went north of Sunnyshore and surfed until we found a Mantike. After that, we went to Mount Coronet to get a few Snovers and Abomasnows. Snover and Abomasnow both have gender differences, so we need 2 Abomasnows, 2 Snovers. Then inside the caverns of Mount Coronet, we found Bronzong, which completes the Bronzor line for us. At this point, I needed to start locating all the starters I had on other save files in order to trade them over to eventually breed for all the starters we need for this challenge. At this point, I wanted to get Spiritomb, so I put the odd keystone in the Hollowed Tower south of Solaceon Town, and did this really cheesy thing where I used the Explorer Kit in order to talk to 32 players, but instead of talking to 32 unique players, I essentially just talked to one of my other save files over and over again, and the way you get them to count as extra people you're talking to as opposed to the same one, all you do is disconnect from multiplayer, which you do that by either exiting the underground or going into your secret base and closing it for decoration. And the fastest way is to just go into your secret base, close for decoration, and then come back out and talk to your same player over and over again. So I did that 32 times, and then I was able to encounter Spiritomb at the Hollowed Tower. Next, I decided to go into my Diamond copy and get Stunky, as it's a version exclusive for Diamond. Fun fact about Platinum is that you don't get either Stunky nor Glameow. You have to have either Diamond or Pearl to get them originally, unless you're breeding. Then I went to the route where Pal Park is and found a Skuntank to complete that line. After this, I needed to do a bunch of daily things. In this case, I needed to check the Safari Zone for Safari Zone exclusive Pokemon like Skorupi and Carnivine, and then check the Trophy Garden to see if for my daily Trophy Garden Pokemon I could get one of the babies I needed. To start with the Great Marsh, we ended up finding a Skorupi relatively quickly, so we caught the Skorupi in the Great Marsh, and you may be wondering, why am I catching this in a Safari Ball? I should be catching these in Pokeballs. The funny thing about Skorupi is that the only way to catch Skorupi in Generation 4 is via a Safari Ball. However, there is a workaround in order to get them in Pokeballs, as the feature for breeding that allows the parents to pass down the Pokeball type they were caught in wasn't introduced until Generation 6. So all we have to do is catch the Skorupi in the Safari Ball, breed it with the Ditto, and then the offspring will be caught in Pokeballs. So that's what I did to get my 2 Skorupis. Also, while I was breeding Pokemon, I grabbed a Snorlax from my Heart Gold Soul Silver games and gave it the full incense in order to breed it to get Munchlax. So we'll hatch Munchlax later. But while I was hatching these eggs, I needed to check the Trophy Garden for its daily Pokemon, and this time I got lucky and it was Mr. Mime. Normally, Mr. Mime is a Diamond exclusive, so it was nice being able to just catch this in my main Platinum copy. After catching Mime Jr., we hatched our 2 Skorupis along with our Munchlax, which was way easier than doing the honey trees. While I was breeding, I also decided to breed all of the starters I collected from other save files in order to hatch all of the starter Pokemon I needed. At this point, we needed to keep rolling the daily Pokemon. In this case, we needed to get some baby Pokemon from the Trophy Garden. If we didn't get a Pokemon we needed from the Trophy Garden, we would then go to the Great Marsh and check to see if Carnivine was there. If not, we would rinse and repeat. Eventually, I ended up getting Bonsly from the Trophy Garden, which I did need. And because I was date skipping and it needed to be nighttime to do this, we found ourselves Kricketune. Now, Kricketune and Kricketot both have gender differences, so we were able to catch both genders for Kricketune and catch ourselves a Bonsly from the Trophy Garden. We will visit Kricketot later on. Then in the same day that Bonsly was able to be found in the Trophy Garden, we actually ended up finding Carnivine in the Great Marsh, which was really lucky actually. So we found Carnivine and we had to catch it in a Safari Ball. Carnivine is pretty much the same as Skorupi, where you have to catch it in a Safari Ball and then breed it to get it into a Pokeball. But if you want to be really technical, you can catch Carnivine in Heart Gold Soul Silver in Pokeballs if you do the Sinnoh sound thing from the radio app. I don't know much about it, but I know it is possible to not have to breed to get Carnivine in a Pokeball from Generation 4. After catching that Carnivine, I went to get Kricketot, so we got the gender differences for both Kricketots and Kricketune. Then I decided to put the Carnivine in the daycare in order to get the egg for it to get it in a Pokeball. But while we were doing this, I wanted to keep checking the Trophy Garden as we still need Happiny, and conveniently enough, the next day after getting both the Bonsly and the Carnivine, we got Happiny in the Trophy Garden, so I didn't have to keep date skipping over and over again for this, and it was really convenient. And while we were date skipping, I decided to date skip all the way to Friday in order to get another Drifloon to complete that line. And after that, I hatched my Carnivine. Off stream, I was playing through one of my Platinum files, and at this point, I made it to the Distortion World in order to catch Giratina. It was on the 4-3 shake we caught it. That took me like, I want to say like 70 balls, which isn't terrible. Took me about 30-ish minutes, I think. We got it in a Pokeball, baby. After catching Giratina, I played through the rest of that Platinum save file, and on stream the next time, I caught some more Pokemon, including Rotom, which we do need 6 of these for all of the forms, but we'll get the other 5 later. After catching Rotom, I wanted to get some more of the legendaries, so for this I went for the Lake Trio, and I started off with Uxie, but unfortunately... Alright, we're gonna go to Azelf. I'm over Uxie. We chucked over like 230 balls at that Uxie at 1 HP and asleep, and it just isn't getting caught. We've never spent this long on a legendary. We've never spent this long on anything catching. I had to catch Deoxys 4 times, and each time it took like at most 50 balls. Our worst before that was like Regice, which took like, I think like 100. And that took a very long time. Like we've been streaming for almost 2 hours. And the first 15 minutes was Rotom. And after that, it's just been only trying to catch Uxie. Like we haven't done anything on the stream essentially. Yeah, I needed a break from Uxie. So instead we went to Azel first. Clear Smog. Yeah, Clear Smog. And then there's also... Oh, it is in this game, so the other one isn't. That's a... Neutralizing Gas, I think, is a hidden ability only. I'm thinking of... What did I say? It's not going to take more than 3 Shake Fakes for this one, man. It was the fourth 3... It was the fourth 3 Shake that actually caught it. If it had broken out, I would have... It would have been bad. After Azelf, I figured I might as well get Uxie over with and went back to it. We were due. We were due for catching this thing, that's for sure. Oh my gosh, that was so nice. I'm glad that didn't take an additional like 80 balls to get caught. After catching Uxie and Azelf, I figured I should do the roaming Mesprit. So if you know how this works, you just talk in front of Mesprit and then it roams. The roaming Pokemon in Platinum or in any of the Sinnoh games are actually really easy because you can track them on the marking map and you just go back and forth between Sand Gem Town and the route right above until you see the Pokemon on the same route as you, and then you encounter it. And just like with the roamers in the Gen 3 Living Dex video, I did the same exact strategy where I found the roamer Pokemon, I used Mean Look, I brought them down to 1 HP, put them to sleep, and then ran, and then saved the game so that they would always be at 1 HP and asleep no matter what moving forward. Then I just encountered them again and caught them pretty easily, actually. Just got done doing one of your worst hunts you've ever done. Does it involve Scarlet and Violet? Because it has been confirmed that Scarlet and Violet are the hardest games to shiny hunt in. Out of the whole series. Wow. That was ridiculously easy. That was way too easy. I'm almost sad how easy that was. I'm just kidding. We'll always take them to be fast. That took like... that had to have taken like less than 10 balls, right? That felt short. Sometimes you throw more balls than you think though. Maybe, I'd say for sure less than 15. After catching the Lake Trio, I figured I should go collect the Riolu egg from Riley and hatch that. Then I went to Canalave City and found this little boy who was having a nightmare, so I decided to help him out and get the Lunar Wing from Cresselia, which caused Cresselia to roam Sinnoh. Just like with Mesprit, very easy getting Cresselia doing the exact same strategy. These things gotta be like higher catch rate, right? After catching Cresselia, I went to the top of Mount Coronet in order to get Palkia and Dialga, because you can get both of them in Platinum after you collect the Adamant Orb and the Lustrous Orb. And specifically, Dialga and Palkia in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, they actually have a much higher catch rate than any other Legendary, so it was very easy to catch these guys. After catching Dialga and Palkia, I did this little side quest with Buck at Stark Mountain, and then eventually found Heatran, which was honestly not too hard to catch. Then at this point, I needed to get some of the mythicals. So in order to get the mythicals, obviously the events are no longer available, but there's this really cool trick you can do, which is widely known as the DNS exploit, where if you find a way to connect your game to internet that doesn't have a password, you can edit the internet settings in your game to give it a special DNS code. This DNS code is 164, 132, 44, and 106. So you enter that, and then you connect to the internet when you do the mystery gift, and it gives you just random mystery gifts that were originally released in the past. Now it is random which ones you get, so I just kept re-rolling them until I got the event items that I needed, which were the member card and Oak's letter. The member card gives you Darkrai and Oak's letter gives you Shaman. So in this clip, I ended up getting my first of 2 Oak's letters that I need. The next clip, I ended up getting the member card. And then on another save file, I had to get my second Oak's letter. This is because Shaman has 2 different forms, and starting in BDSP, you're able to get both of the forms separately in home. So after getting the member card, I went to Canalave City, went into this creepy house with this creepy guy who wants me to sleep, and then magically I'm on New Moon Island in order to get Darkrai. That makes a huge difference. I don't remember struggling to put this thing to sleep, though. Maybe it just didn't get a double team off before. And we got it. Nice. It's always nice getting them on the first attempt. Because if we look at Yuxi, like that could take 3+ attempts to get, you know? After catching Darkrai, I continued to that one area in Victory Road where I found Gabite, and this time, since this is a new save file, I had to escort Marley through this area. After you get through that area on Victory Road, there is another route you can go through, and if you have Oak's Letter, it activates this event where you need to tell someone you're thankful or something like that, and then Shaman appears, and then you bike all the way up the entire region to encounter Shaman. And what's convenient about Shaman is that it's one of the few mythicals that has a much higher catch rate than other legendaries. I think Mew shares the same catch rate as Shaman, so they're just really easy to catch. At this point, I wanted to get some of the Pokemon that evolve in Gen 4 from earlier gens, so I went back to my Sapphire copy, and I encountered a couple Roselia. I need 2 for the gender difference for Roserade. After that, I unfortunately had to go back to Granite Cave and Rock Smash for Nosepass, but luckily this time around, it was really easy to get Nosepass. Last time I struggled for so long in order to encounter a Nosepass. This one did not take long at all. And after that, I found a Ralts after only a few encounters, which thankfully was male the first time around. Then I went to the top of Mount Pyre and found a Duskull. After catching Duskull, I needed to wait for Shoal Cave to get to low tide so I can encounter another Snorunt. So instead, I went back to my Crystal version and headbutted some trees in order to get 2 Apom for the gender difference for Ambipom. Then I went to Ice Path during the day to get 2 Swinub. This is for the gender difference for Mamoswine. After catching those Pokemon, enough time had passed so I can get to the low tide area of Shoal Cave in order to encounter a Snorunt, which luckily this Snorunt was female on the first try. Then off stream, I waited till night to get a couple more Sneasel in Ice Path. Oh, Sneasel. Maybe this has to be like a 5% one. 1%? There's a 1% Sneasel? We just caught a 1% Sneasel. Because this is the second floor where they're 5%. Yep, that was a 1% Sneasel. What the heck, man? I spent all this time getting a sweet scent Oddish. And the Sneasel came as a 1% on the, like, first encounter? Second encounter? I don't even know, man. But now we need a male one. Then it took me way longer than it should have to find the male one at the 10% rate. At this point, my Togepi egg hatched, and I actually just bred for this one during the Gen 2 video. I did this when I was going for the Togepi line. I just bred for an extra one because I knew I would need it moving forward. Then I went to the route south of Blackthorn City in order to get a Gligar. After that, I went back to Kanto at night in order to get Murkrow. Then I went to Mount Silver at night to get Mischievous. After this, I found Bug Catcher Arnie and did the little trick to get him to call for a swarm for Yanma, and caught myself a Yanma. At this point, I wanted to send up the Gen 3 Pokemon into Gen 4, so I loaded up my Heart Gold version, and I did the catching show, which, in this one, I sent up the Regis, which during the Gen 3 Living Dex, when I had to play through my Emerald copy a bunch of times for Deoxys, during one of the playthroughs, I caught extra Regirock, Regice, and Registeel in order to get Regigigas moving forward. So I caught these ones now, and then sent up the remaining Gen 3 Pokemon that I needed for evolutions. In the Gen 3 video, I explained in depth how to send Pokemon from Generation 3 all the way into home, so I won't be explaining it again here. After doing that, I figured it's time to start playing through Pokemon Ranger in order to get Manaphy. In order to do this, you gotta play through the entirety of Pokemon Ranger, beat the final boss by catching Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. After beating the game, you get access to this Ranger Net feature, which if you do a button combination, unlocks the ability to enter codes for special missions. And you can use this universal code on screen that doesn't expire in order to get the Manaphy mission. This mission is about the Go Rock Squad stealing a Manaphy egg, and they're trying to find their way back to their base, and they get a little confused with these Paras. They think they're mushrooms. Eventually you get them cornered and you have to catch a Venusaur. After doing that, their old boss ends up helping you and giving you the egg back, which at this point you can send into a mainline game from Generation 4. You do this by sending a signal to your game when you're on the main menu, and then you connect the games together and it sends it in kind of like a mystery gift, which after you receive the egg allows you to go to a Pokemart and pick the egg up via the delivery man. One thing about this Pokemon Ranger Manaphy egg is that you can only get one egg per cartridge, not per save file. Restarting your save file won't allow you to get another Manaphy egg if the egg has already been taken off. The workarounds for this are if you have the means to completely wiping the data from a DS cartridge to completely factory reset the game, which I personally have no knowledge on how to do that. Or if you use an R4 card. An R4 card allows you to completely wipe the save data of Ranger from the cartridge really easily. I actually bought 6 authentic copies of Pokemon Ranger in the past and am using those eggs to eventually shiny hunt Manaphy. So for the sake of this video, I used an R4 card. I then decided to get my second Shaman, so I did the same Oak's Ladder event just on a different save file and found Shaman again and just as easily caught Shaman a second time. Then with the Regis we sent up from Emerald, we went to Snowpoint Temple, which I'm gonna be honest, as a kid, this was the craziest thing ever. Figuring out that you needed to do all these crazy Braille puzzles in order to find the 3 Regis in Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and then send them up into Diamond, Pearl, Platinum in order to get Regigigas. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever as a kid. And since this is Platinum, Regigigas was level 1 and was actually pretty easy to catch. After this, I needed a couple more Pearl exclusives, so I went to the route to the right of Canalave City and found a couple Glameow. I then mined for some armor fossils, ended up getting 2 of them, and then restored them at Orberg to get 2 Shieldons. At this point, there was a couple evolutions I wanted to do, mainly 2 friendship evolutions, being the Beneria I've been walking for eternity and Riolu. Baneri, I just wanted to get over with, so I just fed it a bunch of vitamins and then leveled it up in order to evolve it into Lopunny. With Riolu, I did the same, but the reason we want Riolu to evolve is because we need to breed for another Riolu for the full line, and you cannot breed Riolu, it has to be a Lucario. Along with this, I grabbed my Rotom and bred that as well to get the other 5 forms of Rotom, and we ended up hatching our Manaphy egg. After hatching Manaphy, we ended up hatching our second Riolu, and then we hatched our 5 additional Rotoms, which I'm only going to show this one because that'd be very repetitive. Then I bred Manaphy with a Ditto in order to hatch a Fione, and at this point, this is the first time I've ever done this, but I have completed the full National Dex on my main Platinum file, because the only Pokemon I was missing for the complete National Dex was Fione and Manaphy, so it's really cool to have that Pokédex completed, as Platinum is my favorite Pokemon game, and it's always something I wanted to do, especially as a kid, so it's cool to finally have the full National Dex completed in this game. After hatching all those Pokemon, I went to the Galactic building in Eterna City and found all the appliances to change Rotom's forms. These appliances are really only accessible via an event, but with the DNS exploit, I was able to get the secret key, which allows you to access this room. So I changed every Rotom to an additional form, and it's funny because it actually removes the appliances from this building, and then later in this video, I sent those Pokemon up. I'm not sure if it permanently deletes those items or if they just puts them back once they leave the game. I have no idea, so maybe I'll check that later. But then we got every form of Rotom, and at this point, there's only one more Pokemon to catch. Arceus. So in order to get Arceus, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can use the DNS exploit and get one of these legal Arceus from Toys R Us that was released in the past, which should send up into bank no issues, but it's caught in a Cherish Ball. You're not the original trainer, so we're gonna do this an even crazier way. If you have a copy of Pokemon Diamond, you can use the Void glitch in order to catch Arceus. In order to do this glitch, you need to have played past Eterna City in order to unlock the Explorer Kit and the bike. You need to use the Explorer Kit at least once, or else your game will crash every time you try to do this. You're going to want to have most likely a Pokemon with the move Teleport, or if you can, have a Pokemon with the move Fly in order to get out of this. And it is recommended that you do this before ever visiting Pal Park in the post-game area. You kind of want to do this more early on in the game. Once you have the bike, you go to Jubilife City and do the bike tweaking glitch, which essentially when you're in the fast gear, you really fast go up past this light, then go left 1 tile, then back right another tile, then back left the same tile, and then exit out, and it should cause the Void to appear. So we're at this point with the Void right in front of us, and I do want to stress that if you want to do this, make sure you haven't been to Pal Park yet. If you have, I think you can still do this, but I've never been successful doing it this way, so I would just recommend doing it before ever visiting Pal Park on your save file. And make sure you have a team that is capable of fighting Arceus, and make sure you have a Pokemon in your party that has either Fly, assuming you are capable of using Fly outside of battle, or the most easy option, having a Pokemon like Abra to teleport in order to get out of this area when you're done with it. At this point, there's a bunch of crazy steps that I could list in this video right now, but instead, I'm gonna save everyone's time and I'm just gonna put those in the description of this video. So if you do want to attempt this, make sure that you check out the description of this video. It's a lot easier to follow that than just my voice throughout this video. I also want to stress that this can be done in Pearl, but in order to send Arceus up into Pokemon Bank and later home, it has to be done in Diamond. I have no idea why. It is some strange quirk with Pokemon Bank that is an oversight for sure, but yeah, it has to be done in Diamond. And at this point, we entered the Hall of Origin and hit retire from our Pal Park catching show, and we encounter Arceus. Now, I thought I had the biggest brain strategy for catching Arceus, and that was to level up a Smeargle that could obey me, and essentially do the usual where I Super Fang it, and then False Swipe it to get it to 1 HP, and then use Spore to put it to sleep. But this thing was destroying my team. I only had like 2 Pokemon that were capable of fighting it. I was so early on in this playthrough that I didn't have any potions really. I didn't have access to revives, so it was looking bleak, but then this happened.
That we'll be having on the server. But that's
There is no way I just caught that. There is no way I just caught that at full HP in a Pokeball. First attempt. That didn't even take that many balls. What is the catch rate of that? It was, I mean, it's a standard legendary catch rate, but like it was at like 5% HP and it was still like less than 1%. 0.416%. What the heck is that? It's like a 1 in 240 chance. Or something. I think, is my math correct? It's like a 1 in 240 chance. And I caught it in like, I don't even, like, was that 10 balls? I don't know. Holy crap. Now I gotta figure out how to get out of here. I can't believe I just caught that. What the heck? Oh my gosh, dude. That's probably the luckiest I've done with one of these. I think I got out. I did it. We're saving right now. I did the whole void glitch. That was like a 25 minute process to do that while following a tutorial. And then I stopped recording. I started recording for that Arceus encounter, caught it, and have gotten back. It's been 15 minutes. We have most of the legendaries take longer than this to get caught, and we had to like go back and everything. I'm gonna save again. That was absurd that I caught that Arceus in a Pokeball at full HP. I was like, and I was on my last Pokemon too, because I'm so early in this game. I don't have revives, I don't have good potions, I don't have anything. So when Smeargle went down, I was considering resetting, but I'm glad I didn't. And now, because we're stuck behind these guys, we should just be able to use Teleport, and it should send us into Jubilife. We're out. We made it. I'm gonna save again. Oh my gosh, what a way to catch the last Pokemon, the god of Pokemon, in a Pokeball at full HP after only a few attempts.
After catching Arceus and getting out of that terrible limbo of the void and saving our game, what we needed to do moving forward was level up Arceus to level 100 and make it learn the move Judgment. After this, you need to make sure it doesn't know any other move besides Judgment. So go to the move deleter and delete the 3 other moves so that Judgment is its only move. And this does have to be done in Generation 4. It doesn't necessarily have to be done in Diamond. You just have to catch it in Diamond. But the level up process and the teaching move process can be done in any game before sending up to Generation 5.
Alright, this is the moment of truth. I'm gonna try to send up the Arceus into Pokemon Home. I've done this before, but it was so many years ago, so you never know if there was some sort of, like, patch or something. It should be in box 1 with a bunch of other random Pokemon, but it'll flag it if it notices that it's an Arceus. Let's see. And it works. It still works. Confirmed. I've never gotten any updates on, like, the video I made on it or, like, anything. I didn't know if it still worked, but there you go. Arceus being sent into bank with no issues. Caught in Diamond via the Void Glitch. And leveled up to level 100, learns the move Judgment, forgets every other move. And we might as well show that this is going into bank with no issues. And here we go. Here's the level 100 Arceus in a Pokeball. You can't see on the bottom screen, but it says first met in the Sinnoh region, so... And it's my original trainer, which is awesome. That is so relieving that that worked. I'm so glad that still works. It's definitely some oversight, which I understand I'm making a video on this. I don't think they're gonna patch it out, but hopefully they don't if Pokemon ends up watching this video. Hopefully you don't patch it out.
After setting up all our Pokemon, here is our full living dex of Generation 4, but we gotta do some evolutions. Starting off, I went to Sword and Shield and used a bunch of rare candies and evolved my Luxios into Luxrays with the gender difference, being the mane is a little longer on the male one. Then I evolved Roselia into Roserade with the gender difference, which is the cape is a little longer on the female one. Then we evolved one of our female Combees into Vespiquen, our Cherubi into Cherim, a Drifloon into Drifblim, our Gabites into Garchomps with the gender difference, which is, again, the dorsal fin having that notch out of it when it's a male. We evolved Skorupi into Drapion. We evolved our Crogunks into Toxicroaks with the gender difference, which this one, it is the throat sac is a little bigger on the male. We evolved our Sneasel into Weavile with the gender difference, which this one, it's the ear feathers are a little shorter on the female. In Generation 8, they changed it so that all the Pokemon that need a magnetic field to evolve just use a Thunderstone. Is it more convenient? Yes. Is it also lame? Yes. Then we evolved our Lickitung into Licky Licky, and we evolved a couple Rhyhorns into Rhydons with the gender difference, but in order to evolve them into Rhyperior, we needed to first give them the Protector held item and then trade them to my other Switch, and we got both Rhyperiors, which the gender difference is the top horn is a little smaller on the female. We then evolved Tangelas into Tangrowth with the gender difference, which this one, the female, has longer red tips on the fingers. Then we traded Electabuzz and Magmar, holding the Electrizer and Magmarizer over in order to get Electivire and Magmortar. Then I mass fed my Togepi a bunch of EV reducing berries in order to evolve it into Togetic, and then used a Shiny Stone to make it Togekiss. Then I used the Leaf Stone and Ice Stone on Eevee to get Leafeon and Glaceon. Again, more convenient, but also lame. Then we evolved our Swinubs into Piloswines with the gender difference, and then Mamoswines with the gender difference, which it's the same as Piloswine, the tusks are just bigger on the male. Then we evolved our male Ralts into Kirlia, and then used a Dawnstone to evolve it into a Gallade. Then we evolved our Duskull into Dusclops, and then gave it the Reaper Cloth in order to trade it to evolve it into a Dusknoir. Now I should mention at this point that it's a lot more convenient to do these trade evolutions in Legends Arceus, as you don't have to trade to evolve them. You just need to give them the items, and they will evolve like normal evolution items. But in Sword and Shield, I do have access to a second Switch, and I just had an abundance of the evolution items, so it wasn't a big deal for me to do it in these games. Then we used a Dawnstone on our Snorunt to get Frostlass, and then we had to move to Scarlet and Violet. In Scarlet and Violet, we were able to evolve a Turtwig into Grotle and then Torterra, a Chimchar into Monferno and then Infernape, and a Piplup into Prinplup and then Empoleon. Then we evolved two Staravias into Staraptors with the gender difference, which it's the same spot on their head is smaller as a female. Then we evolved our Apoms into Ambipoms with the gender difference, which is the same as Apom, where the hair on the female is a little taller on the head. Then we used a couple Dusk Stones to evolve Mischievous into Mismagius, and a Murkrow into Honchkrow. Then we evolved our Yanma into Yanmega, our Gligar into Gliscor, and again using a Thunderstone on a Nosepass to evolve into Probopass. And again, I can't stress this enough, it is very convenient to do this, but it is pretty lame. And with Probopass, it's not even an electric type, so it's really weird that you use a Thunderstone on this thing. After that, we went to Legends Arceus and evolved our Porygon into Porygon 2 and then Porygon Z. This one, I actually just didn't have the evolution items in Sword and Shield, so this one was just a lot easier to do in Legends Arceus. Then we evolved our Cranidos into Rampardos, our Shieldon into Bastiodon, And we evolved one of our Burmies into Wormadam. Now, if you know how Burmy works, you have to change its cloak by having it participate in a battle in a certain area, and then after the battle is completed, the Burmy will change cloaks at the end. So in Legends Arceus, in the Alabaster Icelands, you'll get the Trash Cloak for Burmy. So we got our 2 Trash Cloak Burmies, and then evolved one of them into Wormadam. The Burmy's cloaks can always change if you have them participate in a battle, but once it evolves into Wormadam, the cloak is permanent. Then I went to the Coronet Highlands, and I actually found this really good strategy where if you get a Backstrike on a Pokemon, lead with one of your Burmies and swap into the additional Burmy. Because you got the Backstrike, you get an extra turn. Then swap into your Pokemon that you need to defeat the Pokemon with in order to end the battle. And then you can get both your Burmies changed in one battle, which is nice. So we got both Sandys, and we evolved one of them into Wormadam, completing all of those. After that, we evolved our 1 male Burmy into Mothim, and then we evolved Glameow into Purugly. After all these evolutions, I decided to use the Gracidea flower on my extra Shaman in order to change it to the Sky form. And then we put our Pokemon back into their respective slots in Pokemon Home. And there it is. That's our full Generation 4 living dex. Overall, not too bad. The hardest ones were probably Manaphy and Arceus, but those were nowhere near as tough as Deoxys was in Generation 3. If you know what's next in the series, you'll know it's Generation 5, and you will know that 3 of the Pokemon are gonna be a pain. So hopefully I can get Generation 5 out as soon as possible, but it might be some time. So thank you for all your patience on these videos. And that is it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, ring those notification bells, all that good stuff. Be sure to join the domination, and I will see you in the next video.